600 into the vertical blank. Our highest scores have been ranked.
Hey everybody, Old Man Cringe here. No, actually, it's 8-Bit Jeff here. You might ask, hey, 8-Bit Jeff, why are you playing A Quest for Galaxia on your AtGames Ultimate stand-up arcade machine? Well, I'll tell you this, young man cringe. Not only is A Quest for Galaxia an arcade port on the Atari ST, a stone-cold, bedroom-coated classic arcade port, it's also a tribute to an Atari 8-bit classic game. That story next. Atari ST, A Quest for Galaxia, a bedroom-coated, stone-cold classic, number 2. As you might recall, Gary Goth Wheaton was the genius music composer behind the bouncy tune in ST Annihilator that we covered in the first episode of this series. I decided to keep the 6 degrees of separation going and start with one of Gary's best games, A Quest for Galaxia. Released by Budgie Licenseware in 1989 and developed by his own Shapeshifters development team, A Quest for Galaxia is not only a nice Galaxian clone, it also continues Gary's tribute to Atari 8-bit computer games. Gary and his team, enamored by the Atari 8-bit line of computers, first created Ace Invaders, and with it a huge set of assembly language modules for game development. With these modules in tow, Shapeshifters were able to start producing a number of games basically as tributes to Atari 8-bit classics. The best of these is probably Clodhopper, seen here, which was developed as a Bounty Bob Strikes Back clone, and the data files on the release disc have the name Miner 2 on them. Bounty Bob was actually originally called Miner 2049er 2. It's a cracking clone, as you can see here with them running side by side. In the A Quest for Galaxia title screen text scroll, Gary mentions Ace Invaders as his first game and a tribute to the Atari 8-bit classic. But as far as I can tell, when comparing the official Atari 8-bit version of Space Invaders and Ace Invaders, there's little resemblance between them, except they are both patterned after the arcade game Space Invaders in their own unique ways. There are quite a few other Space Invaders clones on the Atari 400, 800, XL, and XE machines, as well as a different version on the Atari 5200, and possibly one of these is where Ace Invaders got minor inspiration. It's much improved though over all of these, and is really a souped up Jeff Minter-like experience with a lot of particles and Zarjazz, making it a complete classic all its own. In the text scroll, he also mentions possibly making a Bounty Bob clone in the future, and we've already seen that come out as Clodhopper and very close to the original. Let's cut to the chase though. A Quest for Galaxia is not really an arcade Galaxian clone. If Gary had wanted to make a straight clone of the arcade machine, I'm sure his code modules and game engine, as well as his sound and music knowledge on the ST, would have allowed him to basically make a dead-on copy of the Namco classic. What Gary accomplished was more interesting to me, and more deceiving, as it was released on a British label, Budgie, and to a public that didn't really have a huge frame of reference for Atari 8-bit computers, and probably mostly missed the reference Gary was shooting for. What A Quest for Galaxia really is a dead-on carbon copy of the looks of the Atari 400, 800, and 5200 Galaxian cartridge, with many small changes to make it better. Because the 8-bit and Gary's version look almost identical, we can be pretty sure Gary was using the 8-bit version as inspiration. Here's the question though, did he even know the arcade version existed? I think he did, and he wanted to pay tribute to the 8-bits as well as the arcade version. But we just don't know for sure. I've tried to contact Gary through a few sources, but have not been able to ask him. So whether or not Gary knew there was an arcade version of Galaxian is up in the air. What is not up in the air is that he did an incredible job crafting this game. From the text font to the flag graphics, to the Galaxian Invader colors, the sounds, the starfield animation, and the sprite formations, it's a pure tribute to what is a good Atari 8-bit classic. Unfortunately, it's a classic that was overshadowed by more popular conversions to the ColecoVision and Commodore 64. I've always admired the ColecoVision version for its arcade quality, but the C64's tamer pace and weaker visuals are no match for the Atari 8-bit port. I was never happy with the sounds of the Atari 8-bit port, and Gary has fixed that in this version. But he has kept in the, let's say, semi-erratic but satisfyingly speedy movement of the Atari 8-bit classic. We received the Galaxian cartridge with our Atari 800 in Christmas 1983. But didn't play it much, as there was a game called Galactic Chase on one of the discs that came with the machine, and we felt it was a much better game and a closer reflection of the arcade game. So booting up Gary's game over the last week, it was surprising, but also refreshing to see that he used it as the base for his version. Since I had never given the Atari 8-bit version a fair shot in 1983, I was surprised to see how much fun Gary's version of it is. So I went back and played the 8-bit and 5200 versions to get a good idea of what he kept and what he didn't. And here's what I found. It's dead close. But I think it improves on the 8-bit version not just with the better sounds, but with improved gameplay. Plus Gary's intro music is a bouncing great tune. Gary's version looks the part, but plays a lot different from the Atari 8-bit version. He replaced the squadron of diving aliens with aliens that dive one at a time. He also introduced alien formations that start off the side of the screen and march on. It's interesting to note that this is a little bit like Atari 8-bit Space Invaders. Also, serendipitously, I've been working on an Atari ST STOS programming tutorial series where we're using machine language extensions to explore making a very similar game. So I have a little bit of experience trying to make an ST perform like an Atari 8-bit home computer. Even though the Atari 8-bit is only 1.9 MHz, the machine was built to play these type of games. The Galaxians are placed on the game screen with a redefined multicolored character set at fixed positions. The character set is then scrolled with hardware left and right. The diving Galaxians use multiplexed hardware sprites. Obviously, the standard ST doesn't have any of these capabilities built into the hardware. They all need to be faked with software. The ST has a faster processor at 8 MHz, but also needs to move 320 by 200 pixels 50 times a second rather than moving a character set and hardware sprites. In place of hardware scrolling, multiplex sprites, and 4-channel multi-wave sound, Gary and his team had to create their own software sprite system using memory-intensive but optimized pre-shifted graphics and Gary's own music engine. The Atari 8-bit computer with its Proto-Amiga custom chips was designed to play these types of arcade games, while the ST was designed to have GEM place graphics in 16-pixel columns horizontally, and anything above that was pure coding magic. A Quest for Galaxia is not the best Galaxian clone on the ST. I would say that goes to Sinister's Galaxian. But the Atari 8-bit cartridge port is also not the best version on the Atari 8-bits. But they both deserve a place in the historic libraries of each respective computer, and they have charms all their own. The result of Gary's work is a very fun arcade romp, and one that I want to explore more on both machines, as well as take a deeper look at Gary's and Shapeshifter's other creations. I can't wait to get into more of Gary's bedroom-coded stone-cold classics. So what did the intelligentsia say back in the day? All three ST Format, ST Review, and ST User gave it high marks. It's interesting to note that ST User mistook Galaxian for Galaga, and none of them really got the Atari 8-bit connection, even though it's in the scrolling text on the title screen. ST Format said it was better than most of the more expensive games, and also placed it in the top 10 public domain shoot-ups on the ST at number 5. Next time, we're going to be diving back into the games that Robert Leon created for the Atari ST. I've been able to get a good interview with him, and so we have a lot more information to talk about Pac-Man ST. Until next time, into the vertical blank.
Programmed in BASIC, we explored 8-bit worlds. Pixels crashed onto a digital shore. All our records were scratched. Left alone, we were latchkey children, terrified of nuclear war. In the glow of the cathode ray, every game we play on our 2600. Into the vertical blank, our highest scores have been ranked. Into the vertical blank, generation Atari. Into the vertical blank, generation Atari.
An 8-Bit Rocket Studios production.